And we are live. This is Rational News. I'm your host, Rational Law. Today's topic will be on the DNC and cultural appropriation. Now, why don't my guests introduce themselves?
Howdy, I'm Southern Wolf.
All right. So, what do we want to get started with first? Do we want to go with cultural appropriation or the DNC or something else?
Well, it is Halloween, and with everyone going around screaming about cultural appropriation, I do think it may only be appropriate for us to start with that.
All right. Did you want to start first?
Yeah, and I'll start off by, hang on, let me find what I was looking for, because I do have the perfect thing for this moment in time. Let me find it. There it is. Yeah, here we go. This little beauty for the moment. There we go. The perfect picture for Triggerween. And so I guess you're the one that did the video first on Halloween and cultural appropriation. I'll let you start off with it if you want to.
Yeah. Well, if you guys haven't seen recently at all yet, I did a special video on cultural appropriation. My main problem with the video, other than the fact that cultural appropriation is complete bullshit, was the fact that there was a woman on there lying about that somehow there was a law that prevented Hawaiians practicing their culture. That was my biggest problem with the video, is spreading misinformation. I mean, that was blatantly false.
I was gonna say I've never heard that before, and I can honestly say that I'm pretty sure people back as much as 30, 40, 50 years ago were dressing up in hula skirts with leis doing the hula dance.
Yes, there were. I have a relative who went to Hawaii 30 years ago, and she saw that they were doing, they had the traditional hula skirts, they were doing the traditional dances, all that kind of stuff. It's not in
Yeah,
very many areas because it's not very popular, but they do it.
right. I mean, to my knowledge, and please, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that the sailors at Pearl Harbor enjoyed girls in grass skirts doing the hula dance. I'm pretty sure that's one of the reasons why Pearl Harbor was a favorite spot for the Navy.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was like complete utter bullshit she was spreading, that saying that they weren't able to practice their culture because of some law, which I had looked. I wanted to be absolutely sure I did not want to get it wrong. So I had looked and looked and looked, and I found absolutely nothing that said there was any law. The closest that came to a law was this law that was proposed to prevent people from making leis. I never specified why, the reason why they wanted that law. I assumed that maybe because there was an endangered flower or something, because, with flowers and all that.
I was going to say, because holy crap, if you go into a tropical store just down here along the Gulf Coast, you will find leis of all different kinds, albeit made out of plastic. But still, there's hardly any care of cultural appropriation down here.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, anyways, she was, that was the closest thing is like that I saw, but that law I had researched never got put in place from what I researched. And the only other thing less closely related to that was the fact that they could not speak Hawaiian in schools and businesses. But the reason for that can easily be because the majority of people in Hawaii speak English, and sadly,
And more importantly than that, the majority of the people in the country of which the state is a part of speak English. And learning English is sort of important, whether it's your native language or not.
Mm-hmm. And hi, Crimson. Glad to have you able to join us. Is your mic working?
Uh-oh.
Hmm.
You'll get it fixed shortly.
All right. But yeah, that was my biggest problem was that, and was obviously the regular cultural appropriation is just stupid, but that was my biggest problem. And then I also gave some of my personal experiences with wearing Native American regalia, which I talked about the Order of the Arrow a little bit, in which we wore regalia to more so kind of, we didn't do it to like make fun of Native American culture. Quite frankly, we've had some Native Americans who were completely fine with the dances themselves. And there was also Native Americans where they would sell their different items from their culture to people who weren't Native American.
Hey, Crimson.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, now I can hear you.
Oh, good. Yes, I got my mic working finally.
Yay!
So, are we live?
Yes, we're live.
Oh, wonderful. That's good. So we were talking about what, cultural appropriation?
Yes.
What a sack of bullshit, if you'll just excuse me. Nothing against you guys. I just think the whole concept is just politically incorrect nonsense. And I just want to say to any of our viewers, I think it's just completely, it's a form of control. Because culture is to be shared between all peoples of the world. It's not just for one race or religion or any one people that are defined to hold on to that culture. Culture should be shared across all borders.
I thought it was garbage to begin with, and then when I had a communist tell me I was appropriating Mexican culture for wearing a cowboy hat,
well, they're trying to control you.
That's the point where I was trash.
Social control through social Marxism, and they're trying to guilt trip you also anytime they ever say that to you, that your culture appropriating Mexicans or Native Americans or African Americans, etc., etc. All it is just a form of manipulation.
Yes.
Okay,
a way of
over. You may continue.
Yes, I think I agree. I can't remember what we were saying earlier. That was my experiences with Native American culture, in the fact that there are Native Americans and other groups sell their culture as well.
Yes.
If you look at, although this is not quietly related to cultural appropriation, but like with the Redskins, I think it was the Wall Street Journal did a survey with Native Americans who, what they viewed the name Redskins of that, I think it was the baseball team Redskins, and how they viewed the name of that name. And 90% of Native Americans didn't give a crap. They didn't care that the name was Redskins.
And usually the ones who do give, like, who do care about it or claim that they're quote unquote offended by it, are usually the really, really like upper class kind of bourgeois Native Americans that are getting big bucks from whatever casino they have. Like the poorest ones that are like out there in the Southwest where they are abjectly poor.
On the reservations, they couldn't give a shit. They don't care.
No, some of them actually like the term. They call themselves Redskins.
You should take pride in it. It's part of their heritage.
Yes.
I mean, even I'm part Native American.
I forgot about that.
Native South American, but no, do I choose to get offended? No, I think it's I think it shows weak resolve, first of all, and people these days have the skin as thin as rice paper. See, people had thicker skin back in the day, even in the 20th century and earlier. People, it was more of a culture where you could use names and it wouldn't be as considered like taboo to use names to refer to someone as a redskin or whatever, but
like it's just dumb. I mean, it truly is dumb. Of the things a person could complain about, genderism, sexism, racism, whatever, cultural appropriation is probably the dumbest thing that you could complain about, save maybe for trans ableism or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot bigger issues, more pressing issues that we're facing, and these non-issues, these non-events are just a distraction. Cultural appropriation being one of many. It's just a distraction to keep people complacent. I mean, we have poverty, we have other issues that we have to face, energy crisis in the United States. There's, boosting the economy. There's much more significant issues than all of this cultural horseshit that the people from the far left are trying to put front and center. Identity politics. And the Democratic Party for that. That's their platform now. That's what they've been reduced to.
Which is funny.
Yeah.
Which is funny because most people on the left buy into the idea of cultural relativism, which would say that culture is not important whatsoever, which I also call bull at. And yet at the same time, they go around screeching about other people, quote unquote, appropriating other people's cultures. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to how they combine the both at the same time.
And then there's some... Sorry. Go on.
That's fine. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, and I was going to say, and then there's also some who say white people don't have any culture.
No, just no.
Oh, they
Now,
do.
granted,
It's just racist to say so. It's just racist to take pride in your Oktoberfest and your German.
well, now see, here's the truth about that. There is technically no actual quote unquote white culture, and the reason I say that is because just even back 100 years ago, people didn't go around saying that they had they were of white ancestry. They went around saying they were of German ancestry or Irish ancestry or Scottish ancestry. So technically, it is correct. There is no white culture. It's German culture, Scottish culture, Irish culture, insert nation from Europe here culture.
And now we've become such a blend in this country, it's virtually indistinguishable between being British, Irish, Germanic, what have you, any blended European. But back in the day, they settled in groups. They settled in neighborhoods.
Yes, especially in places.
Italians, they all came to the New World, mostly through Ellis Island in New York, and they formed distinct neighborhoods and communities. They didn't call themselves white. It wasn't a term back in the day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you had individual little sub-communities in New York, like Little Chinatown, Little Italy, and wherever else that were their own distinct little subcultures in New York, but all were a part of the bigger city of New York.
So anytime someone uses the term white, it's a blanket term. It's just a blanket term. All it means is anyone of relative European heritage that has somewhat light skin. And that's just what it's come to mean and how it comes to be defined. And these labels can either be used to divide people or to unite them. Now, I understand it's good to have heritage. It's good to take pride in your culture and who you are. Absolutely. But it's just become such a form of contention that the left is trying to use against conservatives and other moderates and other people as well. Cultural appropriation being one form that they use that form of contention. That's just one of their methods. And they have a lot at their disposal. They lie outright to people.
Yeah, and part of the issue too is that even if you wanted to group Europeans together, which can be done, it's still not done under quote unquote white. It usually is done to two groups: Anglo-Saxon, which is what I am, and Caucasian, which is still two very distinct groups. The people, especially from Southeastern Europe, are quite different from the people in Northwestern Europe. There is a big difference there, but that does not matter to any of these people going around screaming about appropriation. But here's another question going along with that. They can go around complaining about people being white. Are you going to call someone from Kazakhstan white? They have light skin and generally European features, but they are not from Europe.
No, well, they are related to the same Indo-Aryans that migrated into Europe, since the Ice Age ended over thousands of years. So they were still part of the same family. We're just becoming so divergent that we've formed distinct cultures, one in Kazakhstan, one in Western Europe, but they still have the same Indo-Aryan ancestors as well.
Yes.
That blended
Plus, you have
supposedly Neanderthals and others.
And some mix of Mongolian in there somewhere.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Here's a question. Would you call a Mongolian white? They have light skin. I want to see someone try to push that argument.
Yeah. So these labels, they just become so indistinguishable at some level that it just becomes a comedy when people try to use them to divide other people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a non-issue.
Yeah.
So I got banned from Twitter recently. That's news I should probably mention.
Yep, your memes were just too spicy.
My memes were dank. I probably said something that offended some snowflakes, or I can assume that some leftist furs probably got together and probably mass reported me. But it's just cool. I'm over it. It's all good. I might make another account. I'm kind of toying with the idea.
You should, and you should
making more of a making an account that's even more comedic and even more of a parody,
even more dank.
Yeah, even more dank.
Says the man with the Confederate flag Kekistan wolf up here.
Yeah, there you go. In the same vein, but doing my own thing. But you get it.
Yeah, that happened to me too. Back when I was under Rational and the whole team was under the commie had the commie brigade after us.
Yeah,
I got
I
a
heard
12-hour
about that.
suspension because of some commie snowflake who couldn't handle me calling him what he was, which was a tranny commie.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I've had my own share of flack from communists, particularly in the furry fandom, that most have blocked me. Some didn't, you know. And most of this interaction, of course, does take place on Twitter, but it's not something that I generally typically see in my local groups of people that I hang out with, your furries in particular. But I mean, they're there. I'm sure they're there, but it's mostly they're out west, so most of California.
Yeah.
Oregon, Portland, very liberal areas. They tend to come from.
Liberal stan.
Dog Patch Press, of course, and others. But
oh yeah,
you know they're
what's funny is you talk about there being communists in the furry fandom, which I can honestly say that too because I've seen plenty of them. What's funny is the first person to call me a degenerate furry was a communist, which is I'm not sure if that proves the horseshoe theory or not, but it was the first time I've ever been called a degenerate, and it was a communist who did it. Which makes no sense whatsoever. But I wanted to try to get some of the communist furs in on that conversation, but none would take the bait, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. No, it's almost, I'd say it's almost absurd as the concept of Nazi furs with the video that you showed me last night about that guy talking about having the conversation with Foxler and there being Nazis in the fandom and all this nonsense. Well, real communists, they would purge people that support free expression.
Yeah,
furries being one of them. So in any true communist government, if we were living in the USSR, for example, or any communist bloc, furries would be the first to go to the gulag. Okay.
Actually, no.
Degenerates, they would sexual deviants.
The anarcho-communists, the ones who say they don't want a state, would be the first one to be sent to the gulag. Yeah. Then we would be sent to the gulag.
They would be considered enemies of the state and enemies of the establishment.
Because they don't want a state.
If any communist government were to take power, any bloc, like any anarcho-communist, once they outlive their usefulness, they would be dispersed. Either sent to gulags, sent to prisons, work reform camps, whatever. They would be broken up. State requires control, and there's a saying: any communist state necessitates totalitarianism. It necessitates that control. You cannot have a communist government without it being totalitarian.
Yep.
Okay. So anyone not adhering to the status quo, they would be considered enemies of the state. They'd be considered degenerates, gays, what have you. They would be, in some cases shot. Depending on to make a point, and this happens. I mean, I've heard horror stories. Throughout China, I've seen it, and throughout China and Tibet, how certain ethnic minorities were treated. You think if that weren't to happen over here, you think that these ultra liberals and other people they wouldn't get thrown into camps or killed or worse? It would happen.
Oh, so that's
why we need to support democracy. We need to support the Republic, the Constitution, and America.
Yeah, in fact, it was somewhere where I think it was Sargon to show one of those Antifa riots, maybe in America, or it may have been in Europe. I'm not sure, but somewhere spray painted on a wall that they spray painted was the hammer and sickle, and beside the words, "Liberals get the bullet too."
Exactly. That's exactly what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, these people openly say that they have no care for liberals, and they openly say it. So I don't know how liberals who are too far to the left,
Joseph Stalin called them useful idiots.
Yes, that would be a good term.
That's the term he used.
Yeah, that would be a good term for him.
Yeah,
especially for the neo-progressives at this point, because at this point, I would struggle to even call someone who has even a decent amount of support for these groups liberal. Yeah. I would probably just call them progressive, because at this point, most of the liberals that I have seen don't even call themselves liberal; they just call themselves progressive at this point.
It's become a cult mentality, from in my opinion.
Very much
progressivism, political correctness, ultra left-wing liberalism. What you call progressivism, I agree with that. It's cult mentality.
Yes, very, very much so.
Appropriation, you can't say this or that, and it's become, okay to kind of bash conservatives and Trump supporters. It's become kind of condoned. You can see, how it's socially condoned.
So,
So,
at this point, they're bashing everyone that is to the right of them, which includes liberals. It includes libertarians
and moderates. I've seen it happen.
Yeah, you heard Fox from the West got banned.
I think I heard about that. I think that happened just before I got banned.
It did, which is funny because Fox from the West was so centrist it was painful.
Yeah. I don't think I could agree with him on every point. I mean, I respect his opinion. I think he's pretty nice from what I can tell of him. But I mean, some of his conclusions, I don't think I'd agree with that kind of staunch, not staunch, in centrist. The middle, being a complete centrist, not conservative. And he's very much a centrist. So
yeah, but somehow or other
somewhere.
He got banned somehow. I don't know.
Look, anyone can get banned from Twitter, and they're looking for any reason to make examples of people who have large followings. And I'm not saying I had a particularly large following, but I mean, people with thousands of people following them, they're the first to the guillotine, so to speak, to get silenced. Twitter doesn't want these people becoming hubs for other people to network around and hear their ideas, especially if they're very outspoken, like I am, and others, and Fox from the West. I would say he's very outspoken. We're not aligned insofar as our political views. He hates Trump and other reasons, but the point is we're both very outspoken, and I'm sure we both find, Fox from the West and I would both find, a common enemy in a lot of these extremists who wish to censor us from speaking. I'm sure we would both agree that's wrong, and it's a system that is designed to fail, and it's just silencing people is only going to backfire on the establishment.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like I've had friends too who were, were radical capitalists or libertarians who got banned, and it's like they weren't even Trump supporters. So you can't even spin the argument that it's just Trump supporters getting banned, although I'm sure that is the largest group.
Oh yeah.
But it includes everyone except the ones on the far left. They seem to be the only ones who don't get banned. I mean, like they can.
The kind of people who run Twitter. I mean, it's not that you're running from a farm in the Midwest and rural Montana conservatives, good old fashioned American outlaws. No, it's being run from some cubicles in fucking San Francisco or something by eggheads that are liberal elites who just eat this up. They eat up political correctness for breakfast, man. These people are.
That is true.
Far left liberals who run Twitter, believe me.
Jack Dorsey likes his control over the narrative.
Yeah. You can think about the kind of people he would hire.
Yeah.
Diversity hires and this and that.
Yeah. Hired for the sake of diversity, not for their merits and skills.
Yeah. Skills should always come first, regardless of who they are, what their color of skin, their religion, whoever they are. It should be their skill that qualifies them for any position in any sector, business sector, commercial, anything. That's how it should be across the board. But it's just the world we live in.
I agree. Rational. There you go.
Yeah, sorry. I was busy sending out some links to everyone. Oh, and I also sent a link to the YouTube video if you guys want to tweet it out. Well, I guess Crimson, you can't tweet it out since your Twitter's gone. But Southern
I've been silenced. Lo and behold, I cannot tweet anything for you. I'm sorry.
But Southern, since you started, I was hoping you could maybe tweet it out.
Sure.
Another viewer or two.
Crimson got sentenced to Siberia. He's out there riding polar bears with Putin.
Well, excuse me. Since we got kind of off the topic, did we have any other comments on the whole cultural appropriation thing?
It's stupid, it's dumb, and it needs to go away. There.
I think my last thought was on with like my video, if I can give an example. What is your views on blackface? My views on blackface are that how blackface was done in the past, where they were trying to mock blacks for their appearance and how they may have acted, was wrong, I believe, but I don't think blackface in and of itself is wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think intent is the whole purpose. If you're doing it to be truly purposely offensive and mean to someone, then you can make the argument that, okay, it's not right, although I'm still never going to back any sort of actual action to make them not do it. But if they're just doing it, as a joke, I don't care. I mean, I really don't care.
Mm-hmm.
Let them dress up how they want to.
Yeah, I would agree. But yeah, that was my final point, I think, that I made in my video, was on blackface. So what did you think of the video that I made?
Perfectly timed, and perfectly timed for the holiday and all of its stupidity. In fact, let me see, there was an image I tweeted out. Yeah, here it is. You see, it so perfectly signifies the lunacy that tends to come out at this time period. We can get it up. Here it is. There you go. That's from the National Union of Students in Scotland.
Sheesh.
And look out the bottom. Look at all of the organizations in association with the thing for black students, disabled students, women students, I would assume, and LGBT students. It's like, geez, did the whole progressive art come together to make this pamphlet?
Yeah, it's just all ridiculous. But yeah, it's just so stupid. Like, there was also an article I've heard some YouTubers talking about with some mommy blogger or whatever was saying, don't dress your kids in Moana costume.
Oh God, I saw that.
And then she also said, don't dress your kid in an Elsa costume either, because that will say white beauty or blah blah blah. Like, you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. So
as I saw someone on Twitter say, just dress as a rock. That way you're assured not to offend anyone.
I don't know. You might insult. You might hurt some regressives' feelings with saying, like, that's part of my culture. You can't dress as a rock.
No, probably I would offend the ones that would sexually identify as a rock. Apparently, Crimson's microphone died, by the way.
Oh, his mic died?
Yeah, I think he's working on it.
But yeah, I don't think.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Oh, yeah,
now I can hear you.
Now.
Okay, it didn't die because I was just holding the microphone. I accidentally kind of unplugged it with my fingers, and my bad. But I'm back.
Well, did you have any final thoughts on cultural appropriation?
No, I mean, I concur with Southern about cultural appropriation. I would definitely agree with that. As I was going to say before my microphone muted, it's not good to mock anyone. Just putting on blackface just to make fun of black people. Now think about Al Jolson back in the 1920s. He helped a lot of African American actors, and he was helped in turn by them. And he did it not in a mocking way. I mean, he made one of the first movies that wasn't a silent picture. He made one of the first, The Jazz Singer, and just one of the first talking movies. And he performed in blackface in that movie, but it wasn't in a mocking way. If anything, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And he was a Jew, Al Jolson. He was the son of a rabbi choir singer. He would sing, in the temple. So, he was a natural singer, and he did it not in a mocking way. And you can't do it today without being instantly labeled as racist. But I'm just pointing out, back in the day when he did that, he was doing it just for performance, and with that notion that imitation is, not a form of mocking, but celebrating their culture as well, which he did. He helped a lot of African American actors. You look at his history. So that's just one example I'd like to use.
Yeah, I would agree with how it was done, how you say he did it. Well, I think that's about all we can go on for cultural appropriation. Do we want to go? Do you want to go on any other topics of about Halloween, or do we want to go on to the other main topic?
Ooh, I'm a spooky ghost. Okay, that's enough for Halloween.
With fox bones. I'm a fox skeleton for Halloween.
That's okay. I'm this beauty right here. This is my Halloween costume.
Your regular furry avatar? Oh, that.
I thought you were going to dress up as Elsa. Blonde wig and cultural appropriate that white beauty. And
only in private.
Put on a dress,
Only in private.
Maybe Moana. Maybe you can dress up like a Hawaiian girl.
No, I go for them hot German babes.
Okay.
All right. So, do we want to go on to the DNC, the whole DNC scandal?
Yes.
All right. First off, I would like to say I still have not seen anyone on YouTube talk about it. Like, seriously, what is with everyone on YouTube? I don't know why no one has talked about it.
I don't know. I was worrying that too because I figured someone, at least like Sargon, would have covered it, but I don't know. I have not seen anyone cover it.
Like, seriously, there's been complete crickets.
Did Paul Joseph Watson cover it?
I don't know. I don't watch his videos really.
Oh.
But anyways, what do we think of this whole scandal with the DNC and Hillary Clinton being possibly behind paying for the whole Showergate kind of thing? Was it the paying for the guy who made up Showergate, or was it? I forget what it was.
Honestly, I'm not surprised. Like, I mean, that to me just fits perfectly with the narrative that they would want to spin, and it would totally make sense that they would pay to have something like that produced. Although I will point out, they are actually the ones that created it. It was actually that whatever that organization is by Evan McMullen, whatever his name is, the independent Mormon guy out there from Utah that tried to run on the independent ticket. His organization is actually the one that first created it, and one of the other Republican GOP primary candidates helped back it. And then after the primaries came to a close, the DNC picked up paying for the fake dossier research.
Interesting. Yeah,
the Democratic Party is filled with crooks. Nothing they would do would surprise me. I mean, that's their modus operandi at this point. They're just pointing fingers. They're continuing the whole Russia spiel against Trump when they had the uranium deal organized by Hillary Clinton with Russia. They're just projecting basically and trying to cover their own tracks and pointing fingers because they're guilty of what they're accusing the other party of.
Well, yeah, and look what they did to Bernie. As much as I don't like him, what the party did to ensure that Bernie would not get the nomination was horrible.
Absolutely, it was
un-American. And they didn't even try to cover up the fact that they were doing it because they knew they could get away with it regardless.
This previous election, this past year, exposed the deep corruption in American politics, if anything, and the deep-seated, divide in this country, which has become pretty divergent. It really has.
Mm-hmm.
I saw become as wide as the Grand Canyon.
I saw something that was I'm trying to think, I think it was from Politico that showed the general makeup of the political spectrum in America, and for decades and decades, it's been pretty well balanced out between the right and the left, with usually a higher peak somewhere in the center, and then tapering down as you get further towards the end of the spectrum. And that's not the case anymore. You now have two sharp humps on either side with a pretty deep valley in the center where people have moved to one side or the other, and then not many people exist in the center anymore.
Very true. As we're very polarized as a nation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on this whole DNC scandal?
I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm not surprised. In fact, I'm surprised it took this long for it to come out about it. That would probably be my comment on it.
Mhm.
I'm surprised it really didn't come out in the first, days or weeks after the election.
There were probably people trying to cover it up.
Yeah,
Dirty
probably.
politics.
True.
Okay, what about everyone's thoughts on the fact that no YouTuber, from what I can tell, has covered this topic at all? Like, not Sargon, not Computing Forever, not who's another big sort of news kind of commentator?
Paul Joseph Watson did cover it. I just looked on his YouTube channel, but other than
Steven
that,
Crowder. You watched Ladder with Crowder?
occasionally
Yeah,
did he cover it?
I like him. He's pretty funny.
Did he cover it or?
I don't know, but I like his show.
Yeah, I like his show too. I'm not sure if he covered it though. I can't remember.
I don't know.
It may be because there just aren't really all things there aren't enough facts that have come out about it.
Yeah, but they covered stuff that has had very little facts before.
I mean, I could point out that Alex Jones covered it, but that's probably not saying a whole lot.
With Alex Jones, his credibility is he has never had credibility.
He's the young
shock jock.
He's the Young Turks of the right, only he's a lot more enjoyable to watch.
He's like a provocateur from the 1980s in the shock jock.
I think there was actually I don't know.
He's funny and he's amusing to listen to. I like some of his stuff, but his credit. Yeah, you're right about his credibility. He's a bit over the top, but that's his thing. That's how he gets views. He's a household name in a lot of places because of it.
I will say, if I had to pick between watching the Young Turks or Alex Jones, I'd pick Alex Jones in a heartbeat just because it'd be so much more humorous to watch.
Young Turks are horrible. Screw them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I think there was actually a survey, or not a survey. I don't know what it was. It might have been a survey or something that was trying to show like credibility of different sources. I just found it funny that the Alex Jones, the whole Infowars, was found to be less credible than even The Onion, which The Onion is a satirical.
But to be fair, occasionally, sometimes like those publications like the National Enquirer or the Onion will occasionally publish real articles, and oftentimes it's on really, really deeply ironic stuff. I saw quite a bit of it around the election, just because in some cases, I think it was the Enquirer came out saying that they were the ones reporting on the actual facts when the media was covering it up, and it was done in a really deeply ironic way. That they were more truthful in their reporting than someone like CNN was.
That's very interesting.
Not that I read the Enquirer that often. Let me just go ahead and point that out there.
By the way, I just was curious. Southern has told me before, Crimson, that you are a Buddhist.
That is correct. I am.
Were you raised Buddhist, or did you later convert in life?
No, it was my choice entirely. During a childhood visit to China, and a lot of the experiences I've had there as a child led me, by my own volition, to pursue it. And my family was, very tolerant. There was no strict Judeo-Christian or it was Jewish upbringing. There was no strict orthodoxy. Mm-hmm. It was very much I could do my own thing. It was what they call Reform Judaism, where there was still some semblance of tradition, Hanukkah, and a lot of other traditions that we kept, the Seder, but it wasn't strict for me. So becoming a Buddhist was my own choice, and I've been one for 21 years.
Interesting.
I kept up with it ever since.
So, how would you describe Buddhism in its beliefs?
How would I describe it?
Yes,
it's a vehicle. It's a vehicle, and that's literally what the translation means. So, the little vehicle. So,
hey y'all,
it's just
I'll be back.
A tool to use. It's a philosophy. You can think of it that way.
I'll be back in just one moment, by the way.
All right, Southern.
Okay. Should we wait until you get back, or to continue, or?
Oh, we can continue this discussion. I'm sure you're Southern perhaps some stuff about it. So
Yeah, he knows a fair bit.
I know a little bit about Buddhism, but not a whole lot. I know there's the whole reincarnation, and how is the exactly supposed to be the belief in the reincarnation supposed to work?
Reincarnation was adopted from Hinduism, which dates back much further than Buddhism. And the Shakyamuni Buddha, Lord Buddha, before he even came about, the idea of reincarnation it was the Hindus. The Hinduism at first, he borrowed a lot of the concepts from it, including the reincarnation. Well, he kind of reformed that in a different way and kind of phrased it as transmigration. You know, the cessation, the rising and cessation of thoughts, that life, death, and rebirth is basically a cycle, and your energy, your karma passes on in a new form. And it's kind of a new interpretation, came about as a new interpretation of the old Hindu concept of reincarnation. So it wasn't invented with Buddhism. This stuff goes back thousands of years. I mean, Hinduism, 4,000 or 5,000 years old in a lot of cases. So how would I describe it? It's a philosophy on life and on how to relieve suffering. You know, there's just something not quite right, you know. And the Western interpretation of this, that, oh, all life is woe, all life is sorrowful, all life is suffering, leads a lot of people to believe that Buddhism is a pessimistic religion, and that's not true at all. The translation of the word is dukkha, and dukkha, that just means something that just doesn't sit quite right. It's a certain uncomfortability, and the word is Sanskrit, and it just means that something is not right. And that, you know, the price we pay for being alive is to endure pain and suffering. And the Buddha came along. He had a great awakening on how to, you know, put a cessation to suffering for the fourfold truths. And these Four Noble Truths was just to acknowledge that there is, you know, a state of suffering, and that it can be, he made a great, you know, announcement that it can be relieved, that there is a way to overcome the cessation, you know, of suffering, and that is nirvana, to you know, transmigrate, to rise above, to ascend beyond being human, without attachment to anything, not complete non-attachment, the lack of desire, having no desire toward things, being impartial. So that's not, it's more of a state that's in complete balance, that doesn't crave nor thinks about craving. It's a state of immovability. And when he sat down and had his illumination, his enlightenment under the Bodhi tree, it's called the immovable spot. And because of that, he is not swayed by desire toward attachment or non-attachment, or attachment to non-attachment, and that, for that matter. It's a complete form of taking your mind to a point of complete balance. And when you reach that point, you begin to cultivate wisdom. You begin to have a mind that's not typical of humans, like craving sex and power and, you know, money and most of the things that the people in this world crave. You know, it's one thing or the other. It's money or, you know, social status or power. No, he reached a point where he rose above all of that. And that's a general, kind of a mishmash, but that's a general synopsis of Buddhism.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you've been a Buddhist for 21 years, you said?
21 years. I was taught by monks. My particular form of Buddhism just so happens to be Tibetan Buddhism, because that's the place where I had the experience, certain experiences I've had there that have led me down the path to become a Buddhist. I mean, I was 8 years old, and I decided then and there I wanted to learn more about the teachings, the Dharma, the sutras, and I studied on my own. I went back many years later in 2009. I was 22 then. I stayed for some months at Norbalinka, which was the residence of the Dalai Lama. I never met the Dalai Lama, but I did stay at his residence. I'd been there before. And I was taught by some monks, and I had a translator. So it was think of it kind of a crash course. But it was more like a schooling Whereas the first time I was there in 95, it was more of an epiphany, because at that point, that was the final year that the Chinese government had allowed real Tibetan monks in the Potala Palace. The following year, the Chinese government, the Communist Party, the Communist Chinese Party, they labeled the Potala Palace as a museum. They evicted the clergy, the monastic order of the monks. They were evicted, in some cases imprisoned. You know, they were displaced. And ever since then, it's been very devoid of its true purpose. And it's just a museum for people, for a tourist destination. But that final year that I was there was in 95. And the following year, they changed it over. That was the last year they had monks, you know, praying and conducting ceremony. Now there are monks that are allowed to visit even today. You know, you go there today as a tourist and you can see any monks going through the halls of the Potala Palace. I mean, they're not completely banned from it, but they're no longer allowed to congregate or practice or have any sort of theocracy there. Now, one can argue, you know, the communists being a very atheistic, you know how Mao was, you know, religion is poison. Yeah, he hated Buddhists, of course. Communism being a very atheistic order. You can imagine what was his sort of hostility toward Buddhists and Tibetan Buddhists. I mean, just watch 7 Years in Tibet. I mean, it gives you a good idea of how they treated these people. Mm-hmm. So by the time I went back, they were gone, but the teachings are still there. But the order, it's just been decimated. Mm. That's sad, you know, because something is very close to me. And it's not something I get a chance to talk about all that often, but it's sad. Because it's an entire people and culture that have been wiped out. Now, their argument would be, oh, it was a theocracy, you know, it was a Tibetan, you know, it was the Tibetan Buddhists, under the Dalai Lama, when he had actual power before the invasion in 1949. You know, the previous Dalai Lamas, they did have political power then. It was viewed as a theocracy. And you know, from today's materialistic point of view, with constitutional republics and, you know, advanced governments and whatnot, it was viewed as backward. And it is true they didn't have the sort of amenities that they do today. They didn't have the sort of running water or electricity. Tibet back then, it was really medieval in a lot of ways. It was just even pre-industrial. It really was. And then the Chinese invaded in 1949. Everything changed. They did get a railway eventually. They did get electricity. So for all these boons that have been bestowed by the invasion and from Mao and the Chinese, once they invaded, they started ethnically replacing the Tibetan people by moving Han Chinese into Tibet and displacing the ethnic Tibetans, which have become really a minority in their own land. And they've fled the cities. Some were able to flee across into India, but you know, there's still some that are there. But now, today, if you go to visit, it's not. There aren't as many ethnic Tibetans. There are a lot of Han Chinese that have been moving into Lhasa and the Tibetan Autonomous Region, and it's called an autonomous region. And there's still a lot of uprisings that occur even today. You have Muslims. The Uyghur people in northwestern China, near Kashgar. Now, this news doesn't reach the West, but I mean, the kind of hostility that the Uyghur people, and they are Muslim, they're a Muslim minority in China, the kind of hostility they have toward the Chinese government is immense. And there's a lot of riots and a lot of violence that occurs over there in China. You won't hear it make, you know, Fox News or CNN, but it'll happen. Mm-hmm. And no, the Chinese regime is very brutal. And their censorship, the websites they censor, the media that they are allowed in and out of China, it's not the kind of government that I would want to see here in the United States or anywhere else in the world. So it's very repressive.
And apparently, from what I've heard, it's getting worse under President Xi Jinping, the current president.
Xi Jinping, that's correct. That's correct. He's trying to form himself into another Mao.
The party just made him the same position as Mao or whatever the step just below it is.
Yeah.
Basically, he's the most powerful president since Mao.
Oh yeah, he's one of the most powerful men in the world next to Putin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So now I hope people realize what's at stake when they start implementing communism and cultural Marxism through Antifa and all this other bullshit. Because I'm not saying it's going to happen here, but these people supporting the socialist bullshit and trying to get this into government and trying to use oppression to oppress people, it's not going to fly here in the United States. We value liberty, freedom, the Constitution, and it better stay that way, and the freedom of arms, our right to bear arms.
Well, see, here's the funny thing.
Society.
Here's the funny thing, though.
Yeah.
From what I understand, old traditional communists do not like the cultural Marxists of today. At least from what I've understood, at least in Europe,
It's watered down. Yeah, that's true.
The traditional communists do not like this new international neo-Marxist movement or whatever you could call it.
Mm-hmm. Is something happening to your mic, Southern?
No, I'm here.
Oh no,
Southern, are you there?
I guess this mic was.
Sorry, I'm back now.
There you are.
But yeah, from for example, in the election in France with Marie Le Pen, the communist bloc did not back what's his name?
Macron.
Yeah, that's it.
Macron.
They did not back him, and they also didn't back the Socialist Party president either. They initially backed the communist candidate.
He's a puppet of the European Union.
And then, to some degree, not a whole lot, but then to some degree backed Marie Le Pen just because they did not like Macron. And Macron very much represents the cultural Marxist globalist sort of candidate that was running in France who ultimately won.
Yeah, well, France loves her socialism. They always have. That election shouldn't have surprised anyone.
No, in fact, I think it's surprising. I think it's surprising that Marie Le Pen got as many votes as she did.
It says a lot that she did. But now Europe's lost. I'm not even talking about Europe.
Well, except for Poland, maybe.
Poland. See, Poland. The interesting thing about Poland, I just want to say this. They've experienced the horrors of both Nazism and communism. They were the country that got torn apart the most in World War II in terms of infrastructure and lives. More lives were lost in Poland than any other country. Most of the fighting, Poland was devastated by World War II more than any other country, unarguably. And it's interesting how they've emerged today, hating both communists and Nazis, and they support the kind of government they support. They value traditionalism, their culture, and freedom of speech, freedom of expression. They're more akin to the United States in their ideals in a lot of ways, because they've been under the yoke of the Eastern Bloc of the Soviet Union, the USSR, and they were occupied by the Germans under Nazism. They've experienced the worst of it, and now they're the one country in Europe that doesn't have mass bombings and Islamic terrorism. You look at the map where these incidents occur. It's all over France and Germany, but not Poland, because they enforce strong borders, and they also they support cultural hegemony traditionalism.
Isn't Hungary also have the stronger borders?
Yes, they do.
Yes, Viktor Orban has made sure that Hungary is definitely in the group with Poland and the Czech Republic and Slovakia and Slovenia in enforcing their borders and their national sovereignty.
Yeah, I think it was
much the EU's chagrin.
Yeah, I think pretty much a lot of the Eastern Europeans are against what the Western half are for with having open borders.
Absolutely. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we sort of killed the topic for the DNC, because I don't think there's actually much else to say on it. It's like, it happened.
I don't have anything else to say on it.
What else can you say at this point? I mean,
Well, I could say one thing, considering that with Paul Manafort being indicted today, for what I hear, John Podesta, of course, Clinton's old campaign chairman, has quit from his brother's consultation firm, which worked with Paul Manafort's consultation firm. In fact, John Podesta was the man that worked with Paul Manafort's consultation firm, and apparently, John Podesta is now in the crosshairs of the Mueller investigation.
Good. Take them all down. And Hillary Clinton is a crook. She should have been indicted.
She's the queen of crooks.
Should have been indicted.
But yeah,
what happens? She's never going to.
Teflon snake.
I mean,
one of the dirtiest figures in American political history, modern political history. Hillary Clinton.
Yeah. To be honest, I think
John Podesta and her all of her surrogates. They're just, Uma Abedin, all of them. Jesus, they're toxic people.
Don't forget Wiener.
They shouldn't be anywhere near government.
Don't forget Wiener.
Yeah, a pervert, sexting like 16-year-old girls and sending, pictures of himself to underage girls, and these are the kind of people who are trying to get in politics. It's disgraceful.
What
kind of country are you running here? These people shouldn't be anywhere near political office or have any kind of power.
Nope, but they're usually the ones that make it to the top.
Yeah, well, I mean, power attracts power.
The power of pull.
Yeah.
Hazy.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, just woke up.
You're waking up a lot at early hours.
Yeah, it's
What?
terrible.
You missed a very interesting conversation. Is this all recorded?
Yes, this is being recorded.
Oh, great. Yeah, you should go back and listen to the recording. It's been very interesting. We covered a lot of topics. But welcome.
Okay.
Bill Coleman.
Yes, now I remember. If we want to go into another topic, I have some articles, small articles we can go through. How does that sound?
Sure.
I think we missed the whole DNC thing. All right, so there was one we weren't able to cover like last week, and that was still the Jimmy Carter slams the Democrat Party. It wasn't the Russians. There's also one, and NASA funded organization finds mysterious object has entered the solar system. And then there's also what happened recently, I think just today or maybe yesterday, I don't know. Kevin Spacey, or however you pronounce Spacey, whatever.
Spacey.
I'm terrible at pronouncing names.
Spacey.
Comes out as gay as he apologizes over claim he made sexual advance on 14-year-old child actor.
I'm not surprised to hear he's gay. He was very popular in the 90s, Kevin Spacey.
Oh, he was still popular today.
Yeah, that accusation is that. Yeah, that's still very concerning. That's not good to hear.
Which article would we like to go through first?
Well, two of these people in the chat are from Georgia, so you could do Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter?
Good. My vote would have been for the weird object enters our solar system, which kind of sounds like a National Enquirer article, but we'll do Jimmy Carter. I don't care.
No, I changed my mind. Let's do the interstellar object, because I heard about that.
All right.
Are we sure that the interstellar object isn't Jimmy Carter?
All right, I sent it in the chat. How about Crimson? Would you like to read it?
Yes.
You have the best NPR voice of us.
NASA-funded organization finds mysterious object has entered the solar system. Last month, the Pan-STARRS 1 telescope in Hawaii detected an unusual object on the edges of our solar system. The tiny, quick-moving object was first thought to be a new comet, but soon astronomers discovered the object wasn't really in orbit, it was just racing through the solar system. A report published by the International Astronomical Union's Minor Planet Center, which is funded by NASA, suggests the object could be something never seen before. Quote, if further observations confirm the unusual nature of this orbit, this object may be the first clear case of an interstellar comet, the report said. In other words, this hunk of rock once orbited another star, but broke loose and has been sent flying through the galaxy. While astronomers will need to observe more of the object's trajectory to have enough data to determine where it originated, it seems as though the comet came from the direction of the star Vega, which is part of the constellation Lyra, according to Fox News. Experts have also cautiously estimated its size to be roughly 160 meters in diameter with a 10% surface reflectivity. They are now calling it C-2017U1. Such a small object would normally be pulled by gravity right into our sun and burned up. But this comet was moving too fast and instead was shot out away from the sun after coming within 38 million kilometers of it. Tony Dunn, a high school teacher who makes orbit simulations, produced a GIF. Did I pronounce that right? Is it GIF or is it GIF?
GIF.
Produced a GIF. GIF. Produced a GIF showing the trajectory of the comet. C/2017U1 shoots down from the top of the screen in yellow. And you can see this GIF in the article. And there's another GIF as well. And the article ends saying, while the comet has been making a long and lonely journey, Vega is actually relatively close to the sun when considering the size of the galaxy. The two stars are about 25 light years away from each other. At the speed C-2071U1 is traveling, roughly 26 kilometers per second, it would take about 1.7 million years for it to travel between two stars. And that's the article. So comet enters our solar system. They give it a really tacky name. They could have named it better, but I mean, they're just being very, by the book.
That's just the scientific name for it. Sometimes the person who discovers it will name it.
They could have named something a lot more exciting. That would have generated much more publicity if they would have named it like Death Comet 1. Something weird like that. It's going to hit the Earth. We're all going to, like in that movie.
Mm-hmm. I do find it interesting though, because normally objects that come that close to the sun usually get picked up into orbit. So that really is interesting that it's moving too fast to be picked up.
Yeah, it was traveling fast and it wasn't probably caught in the gravity well of our sun, and it was able to bypass it without being pulled in. So who knows? We got a huge object shooting around the solar system, and there's always a chance it could smack into one of the planets, and that'd be all she wrote.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so who wants to do the Jimmy Carter article? How about you, Southern?
I am sorry to interject. I've just been looking at the articles down here. Just different ones linked in. There's literally one man with Down syndrome to Congress. Is there really really no place for us in the world?
Okay.
Wait,
what? I wonder if he's a Democrat.
All right, here's the Jimmy Carter article.
All right. Let's see. Here we go. Jimmy Carter slams Democratic Party. Quote, it wasn't the Russians. One-term Democratic President Jimmy Carter recently sat down with the failing New York Times. What they thought would be a typical leftist interview left them speechless. As y'all know, the Times is one of President Trump's biggest enemies. They are close to fake news, CNN, as they come. Not one article that comes from the New York Times since President Trump's victory has been positive. They reported lie after lie after lie. When asked if he thought the Russians hacked the election to elect Donald Trump, President Carter replied, quote, I don't think there's any evidence that the Russians did change enough votes or any votes. President Carter went on to say that he and his wife, former First Lady Rosalind Carter, didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, but instead voted for Bernie Sanders. Quote, we voted for Sanders. President Carter didn't hold his tongue when speaking out against Barack Obama. He made some very wonderful statements, in my opinion, when he first got in office, and then he reneged on that. Carter said when referring to the Middle East, I'm sure by now that Maureen Dowd for the Times was fuming. President Carter went on to slam the NFL and claimed, I think they ought to find a different way to object, to demonstrate, he said. I would rather see all the players stand during the American anthem. Has any NFL owner or media outlet called President Jimmy Carter out for his remarks? Nope. They sure haven't and probably won't. Jimmy Carter is a Democrat after all. I would have loved being a fly on the wall when this interview went on. I could only imagine what the New York Times thinks of the Carters now. I've never really cared for Jimmy Carter. After all, he's considered one of America's worst presidents in modern-day America. President Carter even said he would travel to North Korea to help calm tensions if he was asked. America now waits to see if President Trump will make any remarks toward Jimmy Carter. And that's the article.
Interesting.
I'm honestly not surprised by that because Jimmy, as much as I don't like him that much, is not a bleeding heart progressive liberal like some other people in the Democratic Party.
He's still a Southern good old boy, deep down.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he has some mental sense.
What?
I said he has some mental sense. Because I remember seeing him in a presidential debate with Ronald Reagan. And he just kept on pointing out, but Reagan, you don't care about the blacks or something like that. Something about the blacks. Well, he just kept on saying,
make no mistake, he's still a liberal, but he's not a bleeding heart progressive like the Warrens and the Sanders and the whoever else.
Mm-hmm. Well, do we want to go through the last article?
Sure.
All right. I can read it if you guys want.
All right.
All right. So Kevin Spacey comes out as gay as he apologizes over claim he made sexual advance on 14-year-old child actor. Okay. In an interview with BuzzFeed, oh dear God.
Well, okay. Do you even want to continue at this point?
I'll continue.
Okay, I'm sorry to interject because I saw the full interview already on CNN, but it's very suspicious. Let's just put it as that.
All right. Well, Rap, is that how you pronounce it? Alleged that in 1986, Spacey, then 26, invited him to a party at his apartment while the pair was starring in separate Broadway shows. Rap, who was just 14 at the time, claims Spacey made a sexual advance on him at the party as the party ended. He recalled that Spacey sort of stood in the doorway, kind of swaying. My impression when he came in the room was that he was drunk. Rap continued, he picked me up like a groom picks up the bride over the threshold, but I don't like squirm away initially because I'm like, what's going on? What's with all these likes? And then he lays down on top of me. Rap 46, who made his name starring the Broadway production of Rent in the late 90s, said he was aware of the nature of the advance even as a child. Oh, is this that guy?
That's him.
He looks like that guy who played in Buffy. One of the guys. There was obviously many guys, but like one of the characters in Buffy. Do you guys remember Buffy at all?
Yes. Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I never watched it, but it was huge in the 90s, so I couldn't help but hear about it.
I was too young to watch it, so clearly.
I've seen reruns of it on like Chiller and other channels.
Anyways, let's continue. He was trying to seduce me, Rap said. I don't know if I would have used that language, but I was aware that he was trying to get with me sexually. The stage and television star added he was eventually able to squirm away and went to the bathroom before leaving the apartment. Rap said he was sharing the story in the wake of Harvey Weinstein scandal, which has seen the movie Mogul. Accused by more than 50 women of allegations, including sexual harassment and rape. Mr. Weinstein denies all allegations of non-consensual sex. Spacey responded to Rapp's claims on Monday morning, October 30th, in the statement in which the actor apologized for the claims, but instead he did not remember the incident. I have a lot of respect and admiration for Anthony Rapp as an actor. I'm beyond horrified to hear his story. House of Cards star Spacey wrote in a message shared on Twitter. I honestly do not remember the encounter. It would have been over 30 years ago, but if I did behave then as he describes, I owe him the sincerest apology for what would have been deeply inappropriate drunken behavior, and I am sorry for the feelings he describes having carried with him all these years. The 58-year-old Oscar-winning continued. This story has encouraged me to address other things about my life. I know that there are stories out there about me and that some have been fueled by the fact I have been so provocative of my privacy. As those closest to me know, in my life I have had relationships with both men and women. I have loved and had romantic encounters with men throughout my life, and I choose now to live as a gay man. I want to deal with this honestly and openly. For me, that starts by examining my own behavior. And that's the end of the article.
And that's what I saw on CNN.
So what does everyone think?
So basically, someone came out and said he did something wrong back 40, 30 years ago. And so at this point, he's totally come out of the closet at this point, so that probably, someone else won't say that he is in the closet.
If I saw an interesting video from what is his name? Just give me a moment to find. Here we go. Stefan Malino.
Stefan Molyneux.
Yeah, where he has a video over here. Surprisingly short. It's only 6 minutes.
Whoa, seriously?
What pisses me off about Kevin Spacey. And it's true because if I remember correctly, because I saw the video last night, with Kevin Spacey, he was one of the people who went to that, what was the billionaire's island? You know that there was this billionaire who essentially had child sex slaves.
Oh, in the Caribbean?
Yeah, he's been there.
I think that Bill Clinton went to?
Yeah, the one where Bill Clinton went to mysteriously 22 times with no documents explaining what it was or why it was there.
That place.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, Kevin Spacey also went over there and he was part of the initial investigation.
That doesn't surprise me.
I'm sure you're all familiar with 4chan's poll, their politics board / poll.
Sure.
I know last year during the campaign, I know they were trying to focus on that island and saying like it was like a whole like a sex slave ring, that John Podesta and like they were all involved with that, and that Bill Clinton, there's this billionaire that he's friends with. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. It's where he takes like a private plane to that island, and supposedly there's something that's going on there. You said Kevin Spacey also went there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same place, and that poll board was also trying to investigate that.
Yeah, because the big thing was that the billionaire, he was arrested with a very short investigation, and then if I remember, he was pardoned by Bill, but that could also be me mistaking him for someone else.
Yeah.
I don't remember because I was too young to remember Bill Clinton's years, but maybe. I mean, Bill was dirty enough. He very likely would have done something like that.
Yeah.
Hello?
I think we finished kind of all the topics.
Yeah.
So is everyone good with closing out?
Yes.
All right. So why don't we start with you, Crimson?
On closing.
Yeah, you can say your social media that you still have.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do have a banned Twitter account. So my main website is foxcrimson.weebly.com. So you can see a lot of my pictures and art up there as well. And I might start another Twitter handle. I'm kind of considering it. And I just wanted to say this conversation, it was very enlightening. I enjoyed it. Covered a lot of ground. It was fun. And thank you all. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, what time did this stream start? Like how long ago?
It started around like 6.
Like about 5 minutes after 9 Eastern time.
Oh yeah, I forgot you guys are Eastern. Yeah, it started like 9:05 Eastern time.
I didn't join until like 20 minutes later at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is just a very short stream then.
Oh yeah, I wasn't able to start earlier because I had some stuff I had to finish, so that took a while.
Okay, so I wasn't really late to the party then.
Well, you were late, just you weren't extraordinarily late.
You were fashionably
late.
All right, so why don't we have you, Z, go next?
Okay, my name is Z Commander. I have a Twitter account at Valentino599, a Minds and Gab account at Z Commander, and I probably have a bunch of accounts, but I don't know what they were called.
All right, Southern.
All right. You can find me on Twitter at the South Wolf. That's the main account that you can follow me with.
All right, and my name is Rational Outlaw. I've been your host, and you guys can follow me on my YouTube channel here or on my other YouTube channels, which are Mr. Rational Outlaw and also Rational News Live. And there's also my other social media. You can follow me on minds.com, Gab, Twitter, Facebook, VidMe. You can also support me on Patreon. All right. And I guess that is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see y'all later.